This is Jeanette as she looked in the early 50s, beginning another decade in her life. On June 25, 1950, Communist North Korea invaded South Korea to begin another war in which 1 million people would die. UN forces, which consisted mainly of U.S. soldiers, won back territory that was lost, only to be pushed back when Red China entered the war. Eventually the UN would fight their way back to the 38th parallel where the war began, when a truce was called on July 27, 1953, to end the war. Jeanette was 28 years old.
They've packed out a landing strip, exhausted though they are. They're hungry too, and thirsty enough to eat snuff. By night, they fight off Chinese attacks as the enemy raids from...
On March 26, 1953, Dr. Jonas Salk discovered a vaccine for polio. The year before, in 1952, 58,000 children had been infected. Salk's vaccine, in the years to come, would eventually eliminate polio throughout the world. Jeanette was 30 and the mother of 3.
Washington, and at a White House ceremony, Dr. Jonas Salk, watched proudly by his wife, received from President Eisenhower a citation for extraordinary achievement following his discovery of a poliomyelitis vaccine.
Before I hand you this citation, I should like to say to you that when I think of the countless thousands of American parents and grandparents who are hereafter to be spared the agonizing fears of the annual epidemic of poliomyelitis, when I think of all the agony that these people will be spared as they see loved ones suffering in bed, I must say to you, I have no words in which adequately to express the thanks of myself, all the people I know, and all 164 million Americans, to say nothing of all the other people in the world that will profit from your discovery. I am very, very happy to hand that.
Hot cocoa, you know, these hot cocoa drinks.
This is the Carnation Company where Jeanette worked. In 1956, after the birth of her last child, she began her job at Carnation. She would work there for over 33 years. These are some of the products Jeanette made during the years she worked at Carnation. I remember from the time I was a kid through my adult years how we always had bags full of hot chocolate packets. Jeanette would buy huge boxes full of short or overfilled packets from work for $1. All we ever had to add were the marshmallows. 'Jeanette worked third shift at Carnation. Every night at 5 minutes to 10, she would leave her house and walk the 1 block to work. She would enter through this door here and walk through the factory to punch in on the time clock.
'56 when I started Carnation. And I started working there through Marie Buchheit, my friend Marie Buchheit, and she said they were hiring, and then Hank Buchert was, he did the hiring, you know, and he knew me and he knew Frank. then I took third shift because my kids are little, and then he hired me right away, because he, you know, Frank used to bowl with them on a league, so he kind of knew me, and then he said, yeah, come down, what shift do you want, you know. So I took third shift because Jeff was little then. And that's how come I got in, through Marie Buchheit. God, I did so many jobs there. I was on the packet line.
What did you make at Carnation?
We made hot cocoa, you know, these hot cocoa drinks, and coffee creamer, you know, it's called vending for coffee cream. Yeah, the packets, and then we made those little packages for your coffee, you know, for 1 teaspoon, and the smaller ones. And then I was in the glass line room, made chocolate malted milk. Then it was dumping jars, you know, empty jars to be filled, standing there, go, 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 go. and let's see, what else did I do before the packet line, and then I worked in the lab, testing the products. And then after that, I took that, when the janitor job came up, I took that. I thought that would be a lot easier then. So I took the janitor's job down there, and then until I retired from there. You always had to go on that other building, you know. Well, that was when I became the night watchman. I took the night watchman job then after a while. And then I always had to punch clocks, you know, go around and make the clocks.
Was there something you had to take a water sample?
Oh yeah, then we always had to go in that little house there, Carnation, and take water samples. You know, every day I had to do that. And go in there. When I was janitor, I had to do all that stuff.
What was that house called?
Oh, I didn't know that. What would they call that?
Pump?
Huh?
The pump house, you said?
Was it the pump house? It must have been the pump house, yeah. Where they...
Did you enjoy working at Carnation for
Yeah, then I always had to walk up the lab and take it up to the lab, you know, the samples. They had them labeled, you know, little bottles, had them labeled. And then I had to do that at night when I came on my shift.
One time, one of her many jobs was to take water samples from this pump house here. Many times as we pass by today, she'll tell me the story of how she used to have to go out here in all kinds of weather, into the pump house, walk down the steps here, turn on the water faucet, fill her jug with water, and take it back to the lab to have it tested for bacteria.
When I was doing the janitor work, I always ran into a lot of trouble, especially in the lunchroom. I had to clean up. There were so many messy people in there, and then they used to always tease me. And one time somebody had, you know, like macaroni and cheese. You know how that looks? And anyway, it was in the ashtray. It looked like puke. They put that in the ashtray, you know, just to tease me, you know. God, I'll never forget how that looked. Oh, my God, I said, who did this? And then they'd all laugh, you know. And then one time, then somebody was having eating peanuts, you know. They had them all over the floor, and I had to clean that all up. And I thought, who did? And then I said, I must have found out who did it, you know. So I swept them all up and put them in a bag, and I dumped it in his car. The peanut shells I put in his car. And then I always had to wait. Had to always clean in the men's room. But then I always tried to go in there when, you know, when the shift was gone, when they were gone, and clean in there before anybody get in there. And then one time, remember that red cable, he came in and then he was in there, and then he wanted to show, oh, I shouldn't say this, should I? Then he said he wanted to see a picture, and then I said, oh, what kind of picture? And then he showed me it was his picture of his penis, and then I really took off. Oh God, I wonder if he gave me a cigarette. I wonder if he really remembers that. I should ask him when I see him at George Wynn's with once. Oh, there was always a lot of guys there always after me and teasing me, you know. And my Avon lady's husband, he'd always, when I'd march upstairs to go to the lab, he'd always come sneaking from behind the totes and grab me, you know. And then one time he came and he said to me, all I need is a handful. But then I kept that always to myself because I didn't want to cause any trouble. I could have squealed it and caused him for harassment, you know, and stuff like that. But I just kept it to myself after a while. Then one time, then I worked in I always had to go down to the maintenance guy's room there and clean, you know. And then one time I baked some pies for them and treated them with apple pies. Oh my God, I did all of that. No wonder they all liked me. I don't know, there was just something about them. They liked me. Then I made, like I said, I made a bunch of apple pies and brought ice cream for the maintenance guys to eat on their lunch break.
Mom was a really hard worker. Besides all the jobs she did, especially after she worked at Carnation full-time, she always kept the house clean and made the meals and the laundry and took care of us. And she didn't really have much help from Dad. And with 4 kids, that's a lot to do. And at Carnation, she worked lots of times 2nd shift, and then when she worked 3rd shift, she didn't get much sleep. Jeff was little. And I particularly remember always having a hard time waking her up when she wanted to be woke up during the day. She'd lay down and take a little nap, maybe for an hour or so, and then she'd wake me up now at this time, make sure you wake me up. So I'd try to wake me up, and then she'd always say, yeah, just a minute, let me sleep a little longer. So I really was kind of mixed up there. I didn't know what to do, but keep at waking her up, or because she told me to, you know. But so I think she really had a hard time of keeping everything going around here for a while.
Let's see, Ma was a hard worker too. She always worked every chance she could, you know. If there was overtime, she'd always work. And you know, too, she always used to pick up aluminum cans at work just to do it, you know, extra money or whatever. But, after she'd get done with her regular job, she'd come home, cook meals and clean and do whatever, you know, that has to be done. And then, you know, always take the dogs for walks. She was always pretty active and busy and always doing something.
My ma, a hard worker. They just don't make workers like her anymore. She was constantly going. I was absolutely amazed how much little sleep she could actually get and run a family and do all the errands and do everything, plus work too. The later years she worked 3rd shift. She would sleep maybe 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours before she had to go to bed at night. It wasn't even a full 4 hours, it was a split shift sleep, and get everything done in between time. And she did that for years. A worker, she was a very hard worker. She was always going, not enough time to relax when we go up north, and I don't ever remember her in the lake. I mean, us kids would be in the lake, we'd be fishing or we'd be doing something, she'd be in the house cleaning. It's like all she knew and it's all she wanted to do. It's made her happy, I guess, I don't know. But that's one memory I thought, geez, Ma, don't you ever sit down, come enjoy the lake, come and sit down here for a minute. In her later years, yeah, we could get her to sit down by the lake, but it was seldom when kids were young. It was always something doing, always something going. Her flowers and her house at home and the little amount of sleep she got and work. Oh, you hear a lot about work, and she was a good worker and a dedicated employee. I mean, go to work when she was sick, go to work at times that she probably shouldn't have gone to work and she should have stayed home and had problems at home. I mean, just work and very loyal and dedicated. They just don't make them like that anymore. Don't.